Let's get this out of the way, shall we?
Yep.
Transfer deadline. I know you're not a fan. Is it how long is a piece of string? Does it all depend on what might happen elsewhere? Is there still a desire on your part to try and do something?
I think we've just got to wait and see what happens with with our own squad, and if we keep best parts of it together, then maybe see one more addition. That'll only be another Dutch player. So,
has there been that sort of steady drip of inquiries, people asking agents, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's part of the course. You get battered for it's like a crescendo. So your phone never stops. Didn't stop yesterday. Didn't stop the day before. Texts, emails, WhatsApps. But we've been clear from the start that we've got a tight budget and we've got to try and adhere to that, and we've got to do the best with what we've got. And I think we've made some decent loan signings, and we've got lads who have come through, probably first year, second year, even third year, young third year pros who are desperate for an opportunity as well. So I think you would like a little bit more experience, but I think we've got a decent enough balance.
They're just moving behind you.
We've got a decent enough balance.
You can go all the way around, don't worry.
We've got a decent enough balance in the squad.
We got you. When it comes to deadline day transfers, how likely is it, and how often is it the case that you get somebody you've been chasing, looking at for a long time, and how often does it end up being a bit of a punt?
Well, most of the people we sign is a punt by nature of what we've got to deal with. But I've never been wanting to hang on till deadline day. I've never done that, or never wanted to do that. But unfortunately, you're in the hands of other people when you do that. I can't see us making many signings today or tomorrow, unless something happens to some of our players. And my thoughts about deadline day, about I like a nice game of golf. So it gives me 4 hours respite.
You've said many times you don't like the window system. What would you prefer?
Well, I just don't agree with it at our level or the lower levels. It's open for the conference, isn't it? So that doesn't change for the conference. And I think certainly League One and League Two would benefit from being that you could take players as and when you need them. Because what you end up doing is you end up being scared that you're not going to have enough, and you end up maybe taking too many of players that aren't ready, but just to know that you've got enough should emergencies happen, which did happen to us last year. But I'd like the situation where, for example, if you lost 2 centre halves, you could go out and sign a centre half in November, which that gets taken away from you. So then the bigger clubs who can afford to stockpile 6 centre halves, 6 centre forwards, that puts them in an advantage, I think.
You've talked a lot about your coaching staff, and you spoke about it after the Salford game at the weekend. There has been a change in that area. You're not actively having an under-23s set up in the same way, I don't think, and Jed Brannan has left his role, I think I'm right in saying. What kind of an impact is that having? Is there much more onus on the first team players and being ready for those competitive games?
Well, it's still a similar setup. We're just not playing in competitive leagues. They've been in a cup. But there's still got to be the progression there, that you need somewhere where you're not going to go right from the youth team to the first team. So you need somewhere where they integrate and they come and train with us. And I've always been a firm believer, and you should be training on the same site. And the youth team should have that. They've got their eyes on the prize. They can see what they want to do, where they want to get to, and we can pull them over and train them with us. And you can get better work done when you're playing 11v11, I think. So It's not a radical a change as what you might think. It's still the basis of a interim squad, but just not in a recognised league.
How much of a loss is Jed Brannan then, and what kind of an impact has he made?
Yeah, Jed's massive loss for us, but I had to, as a friend and as a professional advice, he wants to go into first team football on a regular basis, so he dipped in and out with us with the first team. But he's a very, very level-headed character. Did unbelievably well with the U team when he went and helped Scott with the U team last year after John Miles left. And I'd like to think some of our influences rubbed off on him, but he's very, very good with the players, very good one-to-one, very good organising the team and getting teams to win. And I think if you've got that in your makeup, and you can add to the fact that you've been a very good player in the past and you can demonstrate that, I think he's got the makings to be a good manager when he gets his opportunity.
Game-wise, we've talked a lot about away performances over the last few years. Has the bar been set by that performance at Salford? You'll obviously want to add to it, but is that the standard?
Well, you can't govern what the other team do and how the other team play. But you've got to try and get a little bit of consistency in the way you play. And you can argue that when we go overnight, we're never normally the same. I don't know. You can label lots of things on it. The fact is, you say, oh, we never win when we go overnight. Well, if you take the Gillingham away, the last time we went overnight, we won at Oxford. So, that's sometimes you can get a little bit bogged down in that. It's just the way you play and the way you approach the game. We didn't approach the game right against Gillingham. I thought we played too deep for most of the game. We didn't flex our muscles anywhere near like we can. And in this league, you've got to ask questions of the opposition's defence. You've got to try and play the game in their half a little bit more. And that doesn't mean that by you having to go long. There's lots of ways of getting in the ball in their half and controlling the game. But you've got to set that out as you stall it. You've got to play higher up the pitch. And if you go deep, you're susceptible for balls coming into your box. And that's, if you watch the goals on the highlights in League Two, lots of the goals are scored by balls getting delivered into the box. So that's something that I'm mindful of. We have had a good 2 or 3 years of defending set pieces really well, and we've got to continue that as well.
Notts County next. Similar start to yourselves in terms of points return. I think there was a lot of focus on Wrexham last year, getting into the league. They also went over 100 points in the conference and got themselves through the playoffs. Is it one of the more potentially intimidating places to go?
Oh, I always like going there. It's a great place to go. We've had some good results there in the past. And they're a good team. They've kept a lot of the team from last year. You can see with the manager, there's a heavy MK Don's influence, the way they play. And they're going to pose us different problems than what we've seen already this season, and we've got to be able to cope with that. And there's no point asking teams to play a different way to suit you. You can't do that. So you've got to try and cope with what they do, but you've got to try and get your style of play. You've got to stamp that on the game and try and make that influence the game more than what they can do to you.
You spoke about game plan at the weekend, and I hear game plan being used a lot in these interviews. Is it about a large percentage of what your team's capable of and what you're going to try and do, tailored a smaller percentage by what you're coming up against and how that's going to affect the way you play? Well,
we look at what the opposition do. So, and as I said, I've alluded to in the past in these interviews, we've got a good coaching staff. We mightn't have the numbers of analysts that other teams can have, but the work that Jimmy and John do is exceptional. And when I look at a lot myself as well, and between us we come out with how we can think we can best stop the opposition, and then it's down to the lads to work hard. And if they've got to be flexible. There's no guarantee that team's going to play a certain way. You can say that's they're likely to play that. There's no guarantee of that. But the big thing is, in order to carry out them game plans, you've got to work hard. And when we work hard, we're generally a better team. So we've got to try and keep our foot on the gas and work as hard as we can.
I know you had to withdraw Jay Bagaloo and Tommy Lee at the weekend. What's the news?
They're nothing serious in either of them. And we'll just monitor them the next couple of days.